Welcome to the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley, psychology student and international best-selling psychology author of over 30 psychology books, bringing you the latest psychology news, fascinating psychology topics, and more each week. If you want to learn more, then please check out connorwhiteley.net/books. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube video or follow on your favourite podcast app. And here's the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 275 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Colin Whiteley. And today's episode is on what should straight therapists know about working with gay male clients. And it is Monday, the 24th of June 2024 as I record this. So today's episode is a very useful one because I know there's a lot of fear and anxiety and questions that straight therapists have about whether or not they should treat gay male clients, simply because gay male clients are something that are different to themselves, and straight therapists might think that they don't have the experiences or the skills needed to treat gay clients effectively. So, the whole point of today's episode is about showing that that's not true whatsoever. Straight therapists are extremely good at treating gay male clients, and there are no special skills and no special knowledge needed. But there are some things that straight therapists should be aware of. So, this is a really useful podcast episode for everyone, because there are definitely some tips and tricks which you'll appreciate by the end of this podcast episode. Of course, nothing on this podcast is any sort of official advice, but there's still lots of useful things to learn and maybe apply in your own life. So, as this is an in-between episode, there's no psychology news section and there's no personal update. So, as always, I always love to hear your thoughts and feelings on today's episode. So, you can always email me, connorwhiteley@connorwhiteley.net, or you can always leave a comment at the show notes at connorwhiteley.net/podcast, or you can tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi-whiteley, or leave a comment on the Facebook post or LinkedIn post. As always, I always love to hear your thoughts and feelings because it really helps make the podcast feel more like a conversation. And today's episode has been sponsored by Clinical Psychology 2nd Edition. So the reason why this is a good fit for today's episode is because we're focusing on clinical psychology and psychotherapy. And this really good second edition, which is a massive update, focuses on what is a clinical psychology and what does a clinical psychologist actually do. And this covers some of the therapeutic models and ways how a clinical psychologist actually improves the lives of their clients and decrease their psychological distress. So this focuses on formulation, which is a major part of the modern clinical psychology, and I am a massive proponent for it because it is brilliant and I really do love that topic. But it also includes a massive update on the Mental Capacity Act, which is a massive piece of legislation in the UK. And even if you're not a UK reader, then I still think that this is valuable lessons for you, which you can incorporate into your own practice and even your own everyday mindset, as well as there are new topics on mindfulness-based interventions and so many more absolutely brilliant clinical psychology topics that I flat out love and I cannot recommend enough. So I like this book. This is a very popular book, and this is a book that I always receive a few questions about, though, well, simply because people find it so useful. So if you want a deeper understanding of what clinical psychology is, then definitely check it out. So that's Clinical Psychology 2nd Edition, available at all major ebook retailers, and you can order the paperback and hardback version from Amazon, your local bookstore or local library if you request it. And if you want the AI narrated audiobook, then you can now get that at selected audiobook retailers like Spotify, Google Play, Kobo, and Barnes& Noble, and selected library systems like Overdrive, Biblioteca, and Baker and Taylor. So whilst buying books to help support the creation and the editing of the podcast, my time is sponsored by my wonderful patrons. And as always, a massive thank you to my patrons because your support shows that you like the show and you want it to continue. So if you wanted to become a patron and get access to tons of great rewards, now you can at patreon.com/the Psychology Wire podcast. Or if you want to support the podcast on a one-off basis, then now you can at buymeacoffee.com/Con Whiteley. So that's enough of this introductory matter. Let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So we're moving on to the content part of today's episode. So we're going to be talking about what should straight therapists know when working with gay male clients. This is a great episode. It's really useful. And this is a podcast episode that definitely has something for everyone because there are definitely useful tips and tricks for everyone to learn and use in their own lives. So let's dive into it. Something I actually like a lot more than I would ever admit is when someone eventually finds out that I'm gay or non-binary, they ask me respectful questions about it. Sometimes these are trauma or clinical psychology related questions because I talk about these aspects of my past on the podcast a fair bit to help bring the material alive, or the more general questions about life, love and attraction. As long as you ask questions respectfully, then everyone is always more than happy to answer. Also, straight therapists can absolutely work with gay male clients and any other clients from the LGBT plus community. You might need to ask some extra questions compared to straight clients, but that's fine. LGBT plus people have no unique mental health conditions compared to straight people. They only have different stresses at times because the heteronormative and cis-sexist world we live in. In addition, whilst working with a gay therapist is the preferred option for any gay client, the exact same way how straight men prefer to have a male therapist and so on, there are great advantages to working with a straight therapist. Mainly because if the client has grown up in a very homophobic and anti-gay world, then being accepted and listened to by a straight therapist could be immensely powerful in their healing. Therefore, in the rest of this podcast episode, we're going to be focusing on the different things that straight therapists should be aware of when working with a gay male client. Where you shouldn't assume he's as high functioning as he appears. This is one of the main things to know about gay male clients, or anyone who has trauma to be fair, because all gay men experience different degrees of a trauma by growing up in a heteronormative world where being straight is seen as natural and the default, and being gay is seen as weird or definitely not normal. Therefore, gay men often adopt, internalize, and bury the shame this creates, and occasionally this leads gay men to not even remember or want to remember what really happened to them in their earlier life. Personally, another fact I find really interesting as a psychology student, so I never fell into this trap, but a lot of gay men have played down the importance of early life events on their adult life. This means that the therapists are going to need to tease these themes of the trauma out of them, as well as shame, if these themes aren't presenting a problem that the client has when the therapy begins. But there is a more nuanced take on that point that I'll mention later on. In addition, something that can happen behind the scenes when a gay man has therapy with a straight therapist is that you two will be talking about the surface level reasons about why he's here, yet you'll have a warm accepting tone. He'll internalize that acceptance and it will give him something far bigger and far more powerful in terms of healing than whatever the gay male client came in for, since the acceptance that you're giving him will go far beyond your words, and you are definitely giving him the background for major lasting change in the client's life, all because unconsciously he would have been preparing himself to be judged harshly, because that's basically all he knows. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but this is why I developed emotional dependency on a friend I made back in July/August 2023, because he was so accepting. He didn't care I was gay, and he really liked spending time with me. And for someone who came from a background of never having that and never being accepted or even tolerated, that was a strangely wonderful feeling. And my mental health was great during these few months because I was accepted and I had a friend to go out and do things with. Of course, I took this to the unhealthy level, and the vast majority of their clients would never ever do that. Yet I'm telling you this because it shows how powerful being accepted can be. Overall, this all comes back to not judging your client to be as high functioning as he appears, because underneath the strong exterior, there will be a lot of trauma, pain, and hurt that other people have caused him. And that goes for a lot of mental health conditions and trauma experiences. Even before I went to therapy for my homophobic upbringing and everything that entailed, I was in fear for my life. I was doing a lot of maladaptive coping mechanisms, and looking back, I was a wreck at times. Yet you never would have known it because I was so high functioning. There's going to be trauma. Continuing to focus on trauma before we look at shame, another common difficulty about working with gay men is that growing up in certain situations, environments, and even the media can lead to different degrees of traumatization. Unfortunately, a lot of these traumas can include being significantly bullied, not being accepted, and even being abused by family, being added to the local community, and being beaten. Then you have the religious angles too, where the young person's community, family, or religion might reject their homosexuality and by extension them completely. The results of this trauma can be devastating. Naturally, any gay man would want to distance himself as much as possible from these painful memories. However, the real problem is that for a lot of gay male clients, like I found out, is that you can be as successful and as high functioning as you want, but unless you deal with the past, your past will deal with you. That all led to my breakdown in August 2023 because everything just collided together. When this trauma work pops up, a logical first step might be to refer the client to a trauma specialist. But if you have a good relationship with the client, then this might not be needed. My therapists both times weren't experts in trauma, but they still did a brilliant life-changing job. There's going to be shame. So I've met a good amount of gay men in my life as friends and social events, and I've read even more online. I don't think there's such thing as a gay man who's never experienced shame because of the homophobia baked into society, and this is a lot more noticeable when the gay man is a grown up. Also, this homophobia is very present in the current world, and even men who have the most amazing, accepting, and liberal parents, they still experience shame, all because of the world we live in. Especially as we all still live in communities and schools that are filled with people, or bigots as I call them, that have strong traditional beliefs about how men should behave, and if they don't follow these stupid rules, then they will be bullied, mocked, or beaten. Therefore, there's a very high chance that your client will feel embarrassed about past experiences and that they don't want to stir up their own feelings of humiliation from the past. They'd be more comfortable avoiding any triggers or memories of these past events, so this leads to shame. But unless the client can work through these past events, then they will never heal. On the whole, You should know that gay men are great at hiding their true selves and presenting themselves as something that they believe the world would want to see. I understand this feeling because I call myself a survivor and someone who has never lived or thrived or really understands who I am. I am a lot of things, from a student, a youngest child, an aspiring clinical psychologist, a writer, podcaster, publisher, and on and on and on. But if you had to ask me who I am really, I have no idea. In my personal email drafts, there's this small message that I wrote out for my best friend that describes the effects of my past perfectly, and I have no idea who I actually am, and I will actually share it to him. I really wasn't going to originally. It's interesting, it really captures the extreme ways that gay male clients have to present themselves. I wasn't ever allowed to be gay in my childhood, teenage years, and most of my young adulthood. So this is the result. For context, me and my best friend had only known each other 3 months at the time, and they had come over to sleep over for a night. And they were the first gay person and friend my family had ever met before. So this is the message. That's why I wanted them to meet you. The real reason I like you as a friend is because you're just wonderfully you. You can be gay as F at times, and of course I don't want to swear on this podcast, and it's great. You wear feminine and masculine clothing without a second thought, and you couldn't give a poo if you look gay, and I love that because I think that's who I would have liked to be as a kid. But that kid was slaughtered, murdered, and burnt alive a long time ago. That kid had every bone in his body shattered, and his screams were stomped out when no one helped him. So he died alone, terrified, and murdered. He would have been a beautiful kid, though. So everything I've ever done is to survive because I was so scared and I perceived that I had to present myself in a certain way to prevent anything from happening. And I do just have to slightly apologise for how graphic that was. I knew my friend found that really graphic, but I'd actually forgotten what it actually was, and I didn't reread it when I was putting this podcast together. My bad. But here's the thing though, in our clinical work, we are going to have to hear stuff like that. So I think, I actually think maybe that was me trying to prepare all of us for some future work though, because we are going to have graphic stuff said at times, especially when we work in certain clinical services. At least that's my takeaway. In addition, this idea of presentation and making sure you fit in can happen in two different ways as well. Firstly, gay men feel like they have to be successful and excel in the professional world, so the professional success and job can hide the feelings of inadequacy that are buried in them because of the bullying, trauma, and homophobia. And one error therapists can make here is because the professional success is high, then the client's well-being is high too. But of course, that's an error. Secondly, gay men have always stressed physical appearance in the community, and the rise of social media has done nothing to stop this trend. It has actually only increased the need for gay men to look perfect, strong, and like they're not experiencing any difficulties at all, as well as they have the idea that there's only one right way to look. Ultimately, it's easy for a straight therapist to be fooled that a gay male client is perfectly fine without any trauma because all they see is this socially accepted version instead of the client's true self. One way how a therapist can dig past the mask and presentation is to ask about the client's coming out, who he told about his shame, his experiences of bullying, and how he used these experiences to define himself. Then, before you reassure him, you might want to stay with the pain and explore how it continues to impact his daily life. In a way, you're exploring how his younger self is as different from his current self and his sense of expression. So, as this conversation goes on, you'll start to see the real him. help him find his way towards healing. Pushing away the memory of the trauma to one side is the best way that a lot of gay men have learned to deal with their mild as well as significant traumas, and they keep moving forward with their lives in hopes that one day it will be better and they live more peacefully. This is typically done by distancing himself from his physical feelings and using disassociation. And when your client becomes more involved in the therapy process, it's natural to ask what he's feeling on the inside or choose somatic symptoms. If the client freezes when asked these questions, or if they don't trust what listening to their body might mean, then this is normal and okay. This is just something that you're going to have to work on with therapy with him, and he'll open up in time. On the whole, your client needs to trust and be encouraged by you so you can do the healing work with him. And sometimes there will have to be work around his presentation and his body. And your client might feel like their body is betraying him because he might have been perceived by others as more effeminate than other boys, or might have struggled with sports. So the idea that he needs to use his body, listen to it and use somatic techniques, if that's what you're doing in your therapy, might be terrifying. Or he might be concerned about being re-traumatized. This is why you're in an appointment, because as a therapist, you can provide a safe space for your client to use and practice these strategies and techniques, and they can draw on their own strength, all leading to the client to heal, be delighted that there is hope for a better future, and the client might even be grateful for your guidance. If this is the case, then I love the idea of CBT pie charts here. So you can show the client that the therapist gives the client the tools and techniques, but it is them that actually does the most important work with the therapeutic change needed to improve their lives. Conclusion. Overall, we've covered a lot of great content in today's podcast episode that will help straight therapists to understand gay male clients a lot more. The lessons from this podcast episode can be boiled down into: make sure you trust yourself and your skills to help put your client heal. Explore how the client consciously and unconsciously tries to fit in with their socially accepted presentation, and learn the client's history of being bullied. Honestly, those few things might sound simple, and working with gay male clients, as I mentioned earlier, as one myself who's been through therapy twice for homophobia related trauma, and I'll go to therapy in the next 2 months. There's a waiting list, sadly, for sexual violence. Us gay male clients aren't anything unique. We certainly aren't special when it comes to clinical psychology, and we have a lot of the same mental health difficulties and conditions as other people. It is just the reasons, minority stress, and the factors we experience that makes us different. And being aware is a massive bonus and very helpful in therapy. But as long as you're kind, accepting, and the same amazing therapist that you are with straight clients, then you're going to be great at helping gay male clients. And who knows how many extra lives you'll improve, help, and maybe save by being accepting. My guess is a lot more than you ever thought possible. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode and you got something out of it. And I know that I did, because even though this podcast episode wraps up Pride Month and these extra Thursday podcast episodes, I've really enjoyed it. It really is nice just to step out of the niche every so often, because we never really focus on LGBT plus stuff, because there's so many other topics that I want to focus on. That's why I like June. I like a Pride Month because it actually gets me to refocus on it and refocus on the community. And I learn stuff, you learn stuff, and by learning about stuff, we can help everyone, which is absolutely brilliant. And that's the whole point of 1, this podcast, and 2, clinical psychology and psychology as a whole. We're all about helping people here. And I'm really glad that I can do these podcast episodes where I'm able to help more people. So a massive, massive thank you to listening. And on Monday, we have a very fun podcast episode, which I'm really looking forward to about the different things that couples should talk about when moving into together. I'm really excited about that, and I hope you are too. So, if you know anyone who would enjoy today's episode, please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the podcast. And if you want to learn more, definitely check out Clinical Psychology 2nd edition, available in all the usual places. And if you want to become a patron of the show, then now you can at patreon.com/The Psychology World Podcast. And if you want to support the podcast on a one-off basis, now you can at buymeacoffee.com/Connor Whiteley. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow the podcast on your favourite podcast app. And if you wanted to learn more, then please check out the backlist of the podcast episodes or my books at conwhiteley.net. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.